is this another 2008? Okay, we've been getting some of those questions from buyers. We've been getting some of those questions from sellers, from other realtors, and I thought it was time to talk to you guys and to explain to you why I don't feel it's another 2008. I do feel that the economy is going to take a bit of a beat down, to be totally frank about it, here in the next 3 to 6 months. There's no way this many jobs can be lost and not have some economic damage from it. The reason that I don't feel that we're going to end up as bad as 08, there's several reasons, and I'm going to talk to you about that. First and foremost, I want to compare with you where the amount of homes for sale is now compared to back in 2008. I actually just realized there's a graph missing from our blog, so we're going to fix that. But this graph is the one I'm referring to, so if one of our marketing folks is watching, they're going to plug it back in. It was there a little while ago. But if you look at this graph here, you can see back in 2000, there were 11,000 homes for sale. By 06, 42,000, 44,000, 44,000 in 08, and back down. And if you see the date here, March 23rd, 2008, compared to March 23rd this year. And if you look at it, the reason that we picked March 23rd is because that was the day that things got real. I mean, the government came out and said everybody needs to stay home. All the stay-at-home orders or advisories came out that day. So we wanted to measure, where are we now, where were we then, and what are the differences? The good news is that we don't even have 1/4 of the amount of homes for sale right now. And I'll tell you, it's funny, for the last 4 or 5 years, when people say there's not enough inventory, I've said, that's true, it's a problem, and that's part of the reason prices have skyrocketed, but we never want there to be too much inventory, because that creates slack in the market, and slack in the market, when there's too much of it, makes prices fall, and it causes all kinds of problems. Now, if you see right now, we have about 10,800 homes on the market. I mentioned that earlier. We've been stuck there at around 10,800, 10,600, 10,900. A week and a half ago, we get up to 11,000. Normally, right now, we would be at about 13,000. Here's what I'm going to do while I'm talking to you. I'm going to go back to the same week a year ago, and I'm going to see how many homes were on the market at that time so that I can cite it for you specifically, just to give you a better understanding of how things were then. So a year ago, right now, there were 14,800 homes on the market. Right now, there's 10,800. So we're talking about 5,000 homes less homes on the market. Now, if I go back to 2018, I know it was lower in the spring of 18. Yes, it was 13,000 homes for sale. So think about that. We are in a supply and demand business. That is all real estate is. I always say that if it were any more complicated than supply and demand, I wouldn't be any good at it. And I mean that sincerely, because all it comes down to is how many buyers are there and how many sellers. Now, for the last 3 or 4 years, we've had this many buyers and this many sellers. Now, as you go into summer and fall, it gets a little closer, but for the most part, maybe you could say the fall of 18 got a little slow, but for the most part, it's been lopsided. There have been many more buyers than there have sellers, okay? Now, our situation is worse, or you could call it better. Depends on how you look at it. Now there's even less sellers, but I will tell you there's also less buyers. So I don't know that it's that much different now, but I do think it's a bit different now. And I think that's part of the reason that the inventory is stuck, and the amount of homes for sale is really not the amount of homes going under agreement has slowed down. It's not just that there's less buyer demand. It's also because there's more stale inventory. I mean, I got to tell you, home sellers, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but if your home is on the market and it has been for like 3 months, there's only one, unless there's no pictures, unless the agent is doing a horrible job, maybe offering no commission, maybe you're a for sale by owner, unless it's one of those outlying factors, your price is off. That's just the simple truth. And I know you might not like to hear that, but this is what I call the no spin zone in real estate. and I tell people like it is, and you have to understand that your price is off. Also in here, we talked about weekly inventory, and we have had the lowest inventory that we've ever had year to date, and you can see that in this graph. We're down at 10,800. The lowest we were at 11,800 in 2018. We all thought it never could go lower, right? If you go back to the year 2000, 11,400 at that time. So it's very low. That is a major, major differentiator, perhaps the biggest differentiator. Now I want to spend some time with you talking about mortgages. You're also going to see in this graph that's on our site that we'll push out on social media that the delinquency rate has done nothing but decrease since 2010, okay? We're going into this with a delinquency rate that is extremely low, less than, let me see here, we're at about a 2.5% delinquency rate. Back in 2008, we were at about a 5% delinquency rate. By the time we got to 2010, it was 10%. So could it get worse? Yes. Is it going to get worse than where it is now? Yes. There's no question it's going to get worse. It's impossible not to. But I want to mention a couple things. Those people that are proactive, that are in touch with their mortgage companies right now in negotiating forbearances, if you get a 90-day forbearance, that doesn't count as you being late on your mortgage. That is not going to be reported to credit. So what I honestly think is you're not going to see the delinquency rate go up a ton. It's going to go up some over between now and the end of the summer because there's going to be mortgage companies that refuse to give in and give forbearances, people that have their mortgage maybe with a local bank or something, and they're tough about it. So you're going to see the delinquency rate go up a bit, but we're not going to really know the truth until we get closer to the end of the year when the forbearances wear off. Okay, I am certain by then the delinquency rate will be higher, but we're going into it at an extremely low delinquency rate, which is very, very important. There are also other factors that I want to talk to you about. Average credit scores. Now, one of the things that I've talked to you guys about as a whole is the book of mortgages that have been written. I said this last week, the week before. The book of mortgages that have been written over the last 10 years are the strongest book of mortgages ever written in any decade ever. Debt to income ratios were at their lowest amounts. Equity was at the highest amounts. Average credit scores are high, and I want to talk about that. The average credit score for new mortgages in 2019 was 770 compared to 731 back in 2008. That's a 40-point difference. That's a lot. The other thing I want to mention, I'm going to read it right from here. The total debt balance in 2008 was, of all mortgages, was only $40 billion less than it is now. So at that time, it was 9.8 trillion in outstanding mortgages. Now we are at 9.9, I'll call it and a half, in total outstanding mortgages. But guys, the home prices are basically doubled. So if I look here, and you're going to see this graph that we're going to release, home prices are double, but the amount of, call it even, I mean, 40 billion when you're talking trillions is peanuts, which is crazy to think about, but the amount of debt compared to home values is vastly different than it was 10 years ago. Before, the amount of debt compared to home values was close. Now there's a big variance in that. And let me tell you, that really motivates people to pay their mortgage, because it was a lot easier to walk away from a mortgage back in 07, 08, and 09 when people very quickly became upside down in their homes. They didn't have a job. The economy was on its way to crashing. Maybe they had a long commute that they were sick of. Well, now, way more people have equity. When you have equity, you're not going to just kiss 60,000, 100,000, 200,000 goodbye, and you're not going to take that lightly. So, bottom line, the book of mortgages is substantially stronger, okay? Substantially stronger. And guys, I'm going to take questions on this stuff starting in about 10 minutes, so stay with me. I'm going to go over some more things. Now, mortgage companies as a whole are already proactive. This is another factor that I'm taking into account in my decision to make a bet that this is not going to be a 2008 situation. And I feel very, very strongly about that. I do not see home prices going down 20, 30% up here in Massachusetts, 40, 50, 60% down in some of the southern states, places like Georgia, Florida, Arizona, Southern California, where values just got trounced on. I don't see that happening to that extent. Now, do I think second home markets are going to be worse than typical markets? Yes, they are, but I don't see 60, 50, 70% losses in home values. I just don't think that's going to happen here. But let's talk for a few minutes about mortgage companies already being proactive. My friends, when the market went bad in 08, it took 3 years. 3 years. Endless browbeating from the National Association of Realtors to mortgage companies to GSEs, from the Mortgage Bankers Association to GSEs, to get them to work with people. We had so many cases of homeowners calling mortgage companies saying, "Hi, I am facing some financial difficulty and I'm wondering if I could get a loan modification because I'm worried I'm going to get behind." We heard, I can't even tell you how many of these stories, thousands upon thousands. The folks that answered the phone were trained to say, "Well, we can't look at doing a modification until you're at least 90 days behind in your mortgage. Once you're 90 days behind, we can look at that sort of thing." So people would get 90 days behind. Then they'd call back and they'd say, "Oh, sorry, you're so far delinquent that we can't look at doing a modification." Guys, this happened by the thousands. Now people are calling. They're not even having to prove or to verify that they lost their job. And mortgage companies are saying, "No problem, 3 months you don't have to pay." Guys, that's amazing. And they should be applauded for that, frankly. As much as the GSEs and many of the mortgage companies and I banged heads, believe me, we helped a lot of people that were losing their homes in those days, and I banged heads with all of them. I need to give credit where it's due. In a matter of 2 weeks, they were doing forbearances and approving people without requiring them to have any proof. And is there some abuse? I'm sure there's some abuse, but it is what it is. It's better than everybody getting foreclosed on in masses. So forbearance requests went up 2,000%. And there's also talk of them potentially doing another extension to the initial 90 days if necessary. And that's why I say, if you're feeling financially strapped, if you're feeling down, don't, put your head in the sand. You need to be proactive and in touch with your mortgage company. So that's reason number 3 that I do not see another 08, because I'll tell you, the banks made it substantially worse than it would have gotten. And I don't see that now. I see them doing the opposite. And I will also tell you, I heard from inside sources at GSEs that at the GSEs, the government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, FHA, that they learned their lesson last time and they're going to work with people this time. The 4th reason is we are seeing unprecedented government intervention. The situation is unprecedented. I mean, when in God's name did any of us dream of a pandemic that would shut our economy down? Well, as unprecedented as that is, so isn't the reaction from the government. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle that you're on and what side I'm on, doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, both sides, who frustrate most of us, both sides, came together over the last few weeks and they put together some incredible packages. A $2 trillion CARES Act, that had so many amazing benefits in it. Assistance for small businesses, paycheck protection programs. This sort of thing has never happened before. They never gave money to businesses so that they could keep people on the payrolls. Never happened. Unemployment assistance. They added $600 on top per week to give people more of a cushion. They sent out stimulus money already. On Friday, I saw people posting on Facebook saying, "I got my money, I got my money." Can you imagine that 4 weeks ago, this thing really got bad, 3.5 weeks ago, and people are already getting money? I mean, they have to be applauded on both sides, all sides, that they are really, really on top of this. They also are allowing, and they're a little slow with this. This is the one thing I'm getting a little irritated with, and I can't help it because I'm biased to realtors. But they're allowing unemployment for folks that work as 1099 independent contractors. This is a big deal. That was never allowed before. And we can thank our Realtor Association for helping with that. Then last Thursday, the Federal Reserve comes out with a massive plan and says that they are going to increase the amount of mortgage-backed securities that they're buying. And remember, I talked about this in weeks past. Now the private players are scared to buy the mortgages because they don't really know what's going on. They're worried if rates were to go down further, which, by the way, I don't think they're going to. Low threes is as lucky as we're all going to get. But Federal Reserve said they're just going to keep buying mortgage-backed securities. They also said they're coming out with some very interesting loan products. Additional loans for small businesses, loans for municipalities. That's another thing that went bad back in 2008. Cities and states and towns were going broke. So we're 3.5 weeks into this, and the Federal Reserve already come out and said, we're going to lend directly to cities and towns. Never happened. We're going to back loans through banks for small businesses directly with the Federal Reserve. Never happened. So because of all this incredible amount of intervention, and because of what I consider to be good behavior on behalf of the majority of mortgage companies right away, the mortgages that have been written are stronger than ever. And most of all, the inventory of homes for sale being so low, I do not think we are faced with another 2008. I do not think so. And I feel very strongly about that. And you all know my commitment to being real with you all and telling you what I think. If in 3 or 4 months my opinion changes, I will tell you. I can tell you that I think this fall will be a slower real estate market. Every fall is slower than spring. Election years are particularly slower. And I think because of what's going on here, that's when we'll see some reality set in. But I think that I feel strongly that we're not going to see prices just go like this. And for those of you that have asked the question, well, is the house going to be worth $100,000 less in 2 months? No, impossible. Impossible, not going to happen. The only places I'd say on earth that crazy things like that could happen in 3 to 6 months is like the second home markets. But regular markets, that's not how it works. I mean, our inventory is at 10,800 homes for sale. By fall, I think it will be higher than it's been in any fall in probably 7 or 8 years, 6 years. But I do not see it just falling off a cliff. I don't see that happening. So I wanted to mention all those things, and we are going to put this blog out. They probably already put it in the comments for you guys to read. We were missing a graph. I'm sure the graph is probably in there by now. But I wanted to mention that. And then I also want to spend a few minutes on the benefits of home ownership. I don't want anybody, sometimes I think what happens is, when we see so much appreciation in home values, I mean, the average price for a home in Massachusetts now is well over $400,000. 7, 8 years ago, it was like $280,000 or $300,000. It went down a lot. Nationally, prices have come up. Sometimes I think people start to look at their homes only with an investment mindset. And guys, there's much more to home ownership than just that. Of course, that's a great benefit. I mean, where else can you go that you put money, it's essentially a bank account. You pay a mortgage every month. A certain amount goes to interest. A certain amount goes to principal. So every month you're building up equity when you make a payment. Okay, even in the beginning of having the mortgage, only a small amount goes to principal. You're still banking money by putting it in, right? Then there's appreciation along the way with prices going up. Obviously a great thing. We all love when our homes are worth more. I certainly do. But if we run into a year or 2 years, which I think we probably will, that there's not significant appreciation, that maybe we get to early next year and we look back at 20 and we say, you know what, prices did dip 1% or they did dip 2%. Would that really be the end of the world? Absolutely, positively not. Okay, interest rates are at a level that is unbelievable, the lowest ever. What would you rather do? Pay $30,000 less for a home in a year, or pay $30,000 less and have a mortgage that maybe is a point higher, okay? Or would you rather just buy it now? I mean, you look at compounded interest over 30 years or even 20 years if you pay your mortgage off sooner, a 1% difference is a substantial amount of money annually. And it adds up to way more than that lousy 30,000, okay? So could it happen? Yes, it could happen. But is this an 08? I do not think so. I also want to talk for a minute, and then I'm going to get into questions. We're going to take questions in about 5 minutes. want to talk to you all about the tax write-offs. Now, I am not an accountant, so I got to be careful how I explain this, but I want to make sure people realize, for those of you that are renting, you pay your rent every month. There's no write-off for that, okay? When you have a mortgage, whatever your tax bracket is, let's say you send, and I'm speaking roughly, and you need to confirm with your accountant, but let's say you send $100 a month out in mortgage interest. Well, the mortgage interest deduction is an amazing thing. So you send $100 a month out in interest. We all know that most mortgages, it's a lot more. You know what? I'm going to do $1,000. $1,000 a month in interest. Times 12 months, $12,000. If you are in a 30% tax bracket, okay, which is like the average for people, that's $4,000 that you can write off on your taxes and pay less taxes because of owning a home. Again, check with your accountant, confirm it, but the tax write-offs are significant. Take that and imagine doing that math over 10 years of each year saving money. And that's why when people buy homes, usually, depending on their tax bracket and specific set of circumstances, but most of the time after people buy homes, after the first year that they own it, they get a larger check back in taxes. And they're like, why did I get such a bigger check? Because you own a home now. The mortgage interest deduction is an incredible tool. It's an incredible thing, and it's an incredible benefit to home ownership, and I wanted to mention it. And also, just the social and emotional aspects of home ownership. I mean, you look at people, and I got to be careful how I talk about this one, but health, marriages, relationships, all the statistics are better when people own their own home because they care about their space, they take care of it. Neighborhoods that have all homeowners tend to be in better shape. There's not trash left out in the street. All those kinds of things add up. So nobody should be getting down or concerned about owning a home. Okay, I myself, you know what I'm doing right now, what I did before this? I'm plotting on how I can buy more property because these interest rates are so low they're irresistible. And I think that we're going to see a little pullback in the real estate market. That's what I'm talking to you about. And I think in the fall, there'll be some better deals out there like there are every fall. Okay, I always say fall's the best season to buy a home. Spring is the best season to sell a home. So what does Warren Buffett say? When everyone else is scared, be greedy. When everyone else is being greedy, be scared. Think about that. So Warren Buffett would say, don't be buying a home when there's 52 people competing, right? But everybody does it because everybody wants whatever the people have, what other people want. That's just the way it goes. So I hope a lot of those thoughts make sense. I hope they give people comfort in buying homes. If you've been saving money for several years and if you have been planning to buy this spring, you're crazy if you don't buy because of what's going on. This is a great time given the interest rates, given that there's a little bit less buyer demand, but there's also less seller demand, so it might be even as far as buyers go. But I wanted to mention those things. Now,